Hi, it's Emma and Debbie and Deborah. We're just here to introduce you to our new October focus. Claire's going to bring us her thoughts on the shield of faith.
Hey girls, I hope you're good, hope you're blessed, and remembering that you are highly favoured because you are a daughter of the King and you are so loved. He loves you so much. It's lovely to be able to come and talk to you and continue our series on putting on the full armour of God. And today we're going to be looking at the shield of faith. So let's jump straight into our Bibles. We're going to go to Ephesians 6 and look at verse 14 onwards. Just to recap on some of the armour that we've already spoken about and to look at what it says about the shield of faith. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Wow, rereading this text reminded me of the many shields that we've had to wear and endure this past couple of years. Face shields and coverings, and we've been physically separated to shield and protect one another. We've been shielding and shielded, and it's become such a familiar term, hasn't it, really? But at Come Closer, we were talking about shields long before COVID. We were talking about shielding and raising shields for one another before shielding was and wearing face shields was a thing. So at Come Closer, we've used this image of shields. We are shield sisters, and we've talked about raising our shields for one another in prayer and in love and in community. And I'm under no illusion that is such a God incidence, and it's so poignant that we are talking about putting on the full armour of God in a season that has been as hard as this. It's been such a battle, and it's only right that we should be talking about the armour of God in battles that we face. See, it's been a physical battle as we've seen people get sick and contract COVID and, have to have that physical fight of recovery, and a mental one, a real mental one, as we've been battled, being separated from our loved ones. And I think personally, I don't think we've ever needed community and connection as much as we do now. And it can feel really scary, I think, getting back out into the wild and connecting with one another. Now let's have a further look at the shield of faith. Like any good preach, teach, or message, I've got a couple of headings for you to write down. So if you're a note taker, here is heading number 1. There's only 2, so don't worry. Here is heading number 1. Bear with me. It is be more tortoise. Bear with me, you'll understand shortly. See, when thinking about the shield of faith, I started looking in Ephesians and thinking about when it was written and who would have been around at the time of writing. And it made me realize how genius Paul actually is. Genius. Because he's using an illustrated sermon in the whole of putting on the armour of God. He's using an object lesson. Because Ephesus at the time was a huge shipping port, and the people would have been very used to seeing people from all over the world, but they would have most been used to seeing in their day-to-day life Roman soldiers as part of everyday life. And it really got me thinking that every time the early Christians saw a Roman soldier, they would be reminded of Paul's message to put on the armour of God. God also got me thinking this week about shields and shield formations. So I had a little look and went back to almost like primary school, when you study the Romans. I did a little Google search, and it got me thinking about this formation called the tortoise. And if you haven't seen what the tortoise formation looks like, it's a battle formation that the Romans used to use. And what they would do is they would have lines of soldiers with their shields in front of them, but they would interlock those shields. So they would overlap one another all the way down the line of shields. And that would go all the way round, and the back side of it, all the way around. And then they would have people in the middle who raised their shields above their heads on top and interlock them. And so it looked like the shape of a tortoise. They were literally raising their shields to protect one another, and they were reliant on each other. There was so much trust involved in that formation, because the guys at the front had to trust that the guys in the middle who were raising their shields above would protect their heads, and the guys in the middle had to trust that the guys at the front You know, these guys in the middle were raising their shields above their heads, leaving their chest exposed. I mean, they had armor, but it could have penetrated whatever ammunition or whatever arrows and things could have penetrated through the armor. So they had to trust that as they raised their shields, there were people in front of them that weren't breaking rank. They were holding together, interlocking all the way. See, while I was reading, I love coming across cool little facts. And it said historically that it was said that the interlocking of the Roman shields was so seamless that a chariot could ride across the top and the formation wouldn't break. The structure was so strong that it wouldn't cave in. So yeah, trust was a major factor in this tortoise shape that the Romans had created. And it reminded me so much of when we put on our shields of faith, how we can be as Come Closer girls, but how we should be as God's children when we're walking alongside each other. You know, we've often said that we are shield sisters, raising our shield of faith for one another. And this just highlighted to me, you know, that when we do that, when we are shield sisters raising shields together, we do that in strength because of God. And when we can walk together in strength because of God. I've had another verse follow me. I sometimes get that. Do you get that when verses follow you and you just keep seeing the same verse in different places? And this one has followed me from Facebook to Instagram to friends sending it to me it just opening in my Bible and being in Bible notes. And it's Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. And it's a very familiar one. It's also on my board upstairs because it kept following me. I thought I'd just write it down because obviously the Lord is trying to tell you something. And the verse is, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he'll make your path straight. It seemed so appropriate to share this verse, you know, as we talk about the shield of faith. You know, we're reminded that trust is a key part of our faith. So as we raise our shields of faith, we do so knowing that God goes before us. So let's imagine that we are more tortoise. When we think of these shields and interlocking together, let's remember that tortoise shape. Let's continue to raise our shields of faith for one another, pray for one another, walk alongside one another. You know, the Romans formed an impenetrable fortress when they linked their shields together, just as we can when we armor up with our faith shields together. And I love the ideas of our shields overlapping. It's overlapping like on one another. I love that idea that our shields overlap, just like that tortoise of shields, because when we come under attack day to day, we don't stand alone and we have each other to walk with and look out for one another. You know, when we have our shields raised overlapping, we can hold each other up in faith, even when we're struggling to hold on to our own faith. See, have you ever prayed, or maybe you are that person that is struggling, you know, or you've seen a sister who's struggling to see the end of her pain, to see the light at the end of the tunnel, the solution to the problem. See, when you stand side by side and raise your shields with your sister in faith, you can believe and pray in faith over her situation, adding your boldness to her prayer and carrying her too. Another beautiful thing is there is such strength in shielding one another, more so than just shielding and looking out for ourselves. There is strength in numbers moving together. Okay, my second point, and I'm nearly done, is douse your shield. See, the Romans used to dunk their shields in water and they called it dousing the shield. And I wondered why, as I was reading, what on earth is that going to add to anything? But as I was reading, it explained that when the enemy shot fiery arrows at them, the shields would extinguish the flame of the arrow. And I was like, wait a minute. In that verse we just read, it says something about fiery arrows. Let me read it again for you. It says, in addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. So another illustration, as we raise our shields, we can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. I love this. And I had a little light bulb moment that God was talking to me as I researched, because it was almost like he says, who do you have your faith in? I'm like, well, Jesus. And what does the Bible say about who Jesus is? He is the living water. So as we douse our shield of faith, as we saturate our faith in Jesus, as we ground ourselves, remembering who we have faith in, we have the strength to defeat whatever fiery arrows of struggle come at us, whatever spiritual attack we face, knowing that the battle belongs to the Lord. And while we may feel the judder, the impact as the arrow hits our shield of faith, while we might stand in shock and worry as the arrows of pain, of sadness and depression and anxiety hit, we know that the battle belongs to the Lord, and that alongside us stands other sisters who will raise a shield of faith for us, and we're not alone. How cool is that? So let's be more tortoise. Let's get together. Let's learn to trust one another and hold one another in confidence and in love. Let's saturate our lives in Jesus, crediting all glory to him as he fights in our behalf and remembering how he loves us and the sacrifice he has already made. Because we know that we can trust him because he loved us and continues to love us throughout every situation. See, the one thing that we must do to protect ourselves is remember to raise our shield of faith. But how do we do this? See, this is an active choice. We do this by deciding to put our confidence in God, to put our trust in God. And we can simply say aloud, I choose, Lord, to trust you in this situation. I choose because my faith is in you.